So one last thing we're going to do in this outer bag before we can move on to the pocket and the lining is to take the top of the bag here and we're going to turn in the seam here 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, just like we did when we sewed the seam allowance on the inside, and we're going to press this down. So here it is, so you can see that. And then we're just going to press it in place. So just press it down some more just to keep it down. We're going to do the same thing on the other side, just in 1/2 inch seam allowance on the other side. And it pretty much should match. It should be easy to fold over here because it should match what you just sewn in the inside of the purse. Same thing, just press it down. You may need a little steam to keep it down on each side. So, also, same thing at the top. Turn it in about 1/2 inch. I just moved it down so you can see this a little bit better. Again, you're just going to keep pressing these sides down until they all stay, and they should. Just have to be a little bit more patient here with my upholstery weight fabric. So once you've done this part, you are now done with the outer bag, and we are ready to start the pocket and the lining fabric. Now we're ready to assemble the pocket. Here's your pocket piece, and what you're going to do is just simply fold this in half with the right sides together. You have a fold here, and what you're going to do, you have one of these long sides here. You're going to take 2 pins. I'm going to put one close to this fold, about here. Okay, you're going to put the other one about right here. Now the reason why you're doing this is because this is going to be your opening. You're going to sew all from this pin all the way around to here, and then you're going to come here and sew from here to here. But you're going to leave this open because we're going to turn this pocket out when we're done. So we're going to sew this pocket starting here, right under this pin. And then I'm going to take the pin out, and we're going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Readjust. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop and pivot. When you pivot, your needle is inside the fabric, so it doesn't move, and you just turn it around. Oops, I turned it too soon. Let's sew it down a little bit more. Okay. Now, I'm just going to keep going around. Okay, now I'm going to sew from this fold to this pin. Okay. So here's the pocket with that opening that I left where the 2 pins were located. So I've removed the pins. I've also cut diagonally on each corner, as you can see. So that keeps the bulk out of the pocket when we turn it right side out. Also, don't forget to cut your threads, which I forgot to mention before. So any of your threads on the other pieces that you've sewn, just simply cut them. Now, where we have this opening, we're going to turn this on to the other side. And be sure to, you know, kind of poke up those corners there. Okay, so you still have this opening, and it's going to turn inside, and you're going to press this pocket. So bring your pocket over to the iron, and we're going to press, especially around the places where we've just sewn the seams. So you want to get it just kind of flat, or as, you know, flat as you can. So we're back at the sewing machine where we are going to finish the pocket. So first of all, we're going to do a top stitch across, you know, from here to here. And this is opposite of the end that we still have open right here. So I'm just going to do a top stitch where the presser foot is even with the edge of the fabric. So now we're going to sew this piece onto the lining fabric. So that line we just sewed across that pocket is the top part of the pocket. Now here's the big piece of lining fabric. You need to attach this pocket to that piece. So you're going to take your measuring tape and about 4.5 inches down. So I have my measuring tape on the fabric, and it's about 4.5 inches from the bottom of the fabric is where you will put the pocket, as you can see here. So after you place the pocket about 4.5 inches from the bottom, you just want to eyeball it here on the sides to make sure it's, you know, I guess halfway, or kind of, you know, even space between the edges here. And then you can just simply pin the pocket down, just to hold it in place, because now we're going to sew this down to this lining fabric. So I'm ready to sew this pocket to the lining, and I just want to show you real quick a close-up of the inside of my presser foot. Right here is on the edge of this pocket, and that's where you will be sewing all the way around this fabric. So obviously right here at the top, you're not going to sew this part because this is the top of your pocket. You're going to start here on one of the sides and start sewing. And this time I'm just leaving the pin because I'm not anywhere near the pin where I will accidentally sew it on the fabric. Now I'm going to pivot. So the pocket is done, and you can now remove those pins. So here is the lining piece with the pocket sewn, and here's the top of the pocket, and this is the bottom. Now basically now we're just going to sew this lining exactly the same way we sew the outer bag. The only difference is, of course, we don't have fusible fleece on the lining piece. But other than that, you're still going to sew it exactly the same way. So here's that bottom piece, and you're going to line it here at the bottom. And just sew your 1/2 inch seam allowance again from here to here. And what you can do is just go back through this video and watch how we sewed the outer bag and sew this lining exactly the same way. So again, you're just going to start from here to here and sew your 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then you're going to take this short end, you're going to fold it over 1 inch like we did on the outer bag, and then you're going to sew it down. You're going to press it, then sew it down. Then you're going to sew your sides again. These two sides, this side and this side, just like we did before. You're going to create your triangle corners here and here for your depth. And then you're going to sew. Then you're going to turn in these sides here, just like we did before. After you sew everything. Like I said, all of it is on the exact same thing that you did for the outer bag. So go back to the outer bag if you need to sew your lining piece. And after you're done with that, you're ready to do your strap. Now we're going to take the strap and we're going to fold it wrong sides together. We're going to fold it in half here. And you want to press it down like this all the way to the end. Now you want to unfold this piece and you want to create a 1/4 inch turn on the short sides and then on the long sides, and you're going to press that 1/4 inch fold to keep it in place. So do it on both the short ends and then the long ends. So just to show you here, I have my fabric turned in a 1/4 inch on all 4 sides. Of course, I can keep it down better once I get ready to fold it over as a strap, but just wanted to show you. I just kind of eyeball my 1/4 inch. I don't really measure, but you can measure if you want to be more precise. Okay, so you should have a strip of fusible fleece left for the strap. And what you want to do is take that fleece and you want to put the rough side down on the wrong side, facing the wrong side of your fabric, because you're going to adhere this piece to that fabric, and it should just be right next to your folds that you made. It shouldn't be on top of the folds, but just right next to the folds. And you're simply just going to fold this piece over. Now, it's not going to fuse the top, so you have nothing to worry about. It's only going to fuse on the bottom. So you're just simply turning this over and then taking your iron and doing what we did at the beginning and just pressing down for about 10 to 15 seconds so that this fleece can stick to the bottom of this strap. So do that all the way down your strip. After you've completed with the fleece, you want to go back to one of the short ends and make sure your fold is still there. And you want to fold it over. And it might be easier just to pin it down because we are going to put the folds in on the short and long sides, and we're going to sew those folds closed. So I'm just making sure my folds are coming in. Hopefully this is a better close-up of my putting the folds together so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. And then I'm pinning in place as I go along.